Go.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Estes, and this is my case study presentation for EDU 311. I did my case study presentation on a boy named Tommy in Miss Britton's 3rd grade class. Tommy is a 9-year-old boy. He's in Miss Britton's 3rd grade class. He has 2 siblings, Shelly, which is in 2nd grade, and James is in kindergarten, but he's in the self-contained room for behavior. They live with their grandparents, and they see their parents every so often. Tommy's home situation isn't the best. He was removed from his home from his parents. Both of them have previous learning disabilities and mental issues as well. Currently, Tommy has been separated from his 2 siblings because the grandparents couldn't provide for all three of them. He's currently living in a trailer with an aunt. Tommy is a PACE student. He has a learning disability as well, so he's classified as a double exceptionality. Tommy's interest. Tommy's favorite thing to do is to draw. Tommy loves to draw if he's at his desk and he's either bored, he's done with an assignment, or he doesn't really want to do the work. He will decide to draw. He's very particular about his drawings. He likes to draw with pencil because he said that he can erase his mistakes as necessary. Tommy's best subject is math. He enjoys math and he's very good at it. He excels in math. Tommy learns best in the morning. He takes medication for his ADHD, so he does best when it's fresh and he gets it before school. So the first couple of hours before PE until about 10 o'clock are his best. Tommy's favorite sport is soccer. Tommy's favorite food is watermelon. His favorite candy are marshmallows. I'm not sure that those classify as candy, but Tommy insisted. His favorite drink is root beer. His favorite movie is The Maze Runner. Tommy's favorite TV show is SpongeBob SquarePants. His favorite book is Oceans. He enjoys collecting coins and he talks all the time about his collections. We recently read a story about Prudy's problem and how she solved it, and it was all about collections, and Tommy got to share his collection and write a story about it, and he really enjoyed that activity. Tommy also enjoys playing with his dogs. According to Tommy's sister, Shelly, I've had her in class in the resource room, and Tommy also enjoys chasing the chickens with her and is going to be a farmer when they grow up and they're going to live together. So that's according to Shelly. Tommy's academic challenges. Tommy has a double exceptionality. He is classified as gifted, so his IQ is above 130, and he also has a learning disability. Tommy has also been diagnosed with ADHD, and he takes medication for it. He gets distracted often and often does not complete assignments. As I said earlier, his best time is in the morning, which also happens to be math time. He excels in math already, so math tends to be where he gets his highest grades. Tommy does not currently have a behavior plan in place, but they're looking to put one in place as needed. He's very active and often gets up out of his seat without permission. Tommy actually sits right next to the smartboard in the classroom. The other children are in the main middle part of the classroom, but Tommy sits up front by himself because he can't control his hands, and he was touching other students and constantly talking and making noises in their ears, so he had to be separated. He currently actually does not like to sit in his desk. He stands beside it and leans over his desk to do his work. Tommy can be found off-task, doodling or staring into space often. He acts impulsively and does not think before he acts, and this is a characteristic of ADHD. Academic and behavioral history. As I said, Tommy has a learning disability and qualified for PACE, so he had his IEP, and actually they realized he qualified for PACE when they went to test him for SLD in the 2nd grade, and that's when they realized he had a very high IQ, but he had a difference in his achievement scores and his IQ. He has an IEP in place for several years before he was diagnosed with SLD. He had an IEP in place for DD, which is developmentally delayed. Tommy also has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Observation of students. I observed Tommy in multiple different areas, but 3 of them that I recorded were science, on a field trip and then in the cafeteria. During science class, we were about to watch a video, and Tommy was asked to sit quietly on the carpet. The video was having trouble coming up, and Miss Green asked Tommy to sit quietly and not to touch anybody, but Tommy continually rolled around on the carpet. He had a chain in his hand, and he was constantly throwing it up and down, and he was talking. When Miss Green took the chain away, he proceeded to drum on his legs and had to be doing something. Once the movie started, Tommy was more engaged in the video, but he continually fidgeted with his hands. He couldn't be completely still. If Tommy's attention is not on something interesting or that he finds entertaining, he provides himself with entertainment. He's often fidgety, and this goes across the curriculum, that he doesn't like to sit still. He's often either kicking the wall, standing up, bouncing up and down. You can find him walking around. One of his favorite things to do is go get a new pencil so he can walk around the classroom to see what everybody else is doing. Observational student, I went on a field trip with the 3rd grade classes to New Orleans, and I was observing Tommy on this field trip. We went to an IMAX movie on sharks. When we went into the building, we had about 10 minutes till the movie started because we were all getting in our seats, and there was about 150 of us. We asked Tommy to sit quietly in his chair, and these were chairs that reclined backwards, and you could bounce up and down in them. Well, Tommy decided that this was a playground toy, and he decided to bounce up and down. Once the movie started, he decided to kick the chair in front of him, and he was continually talking. He would dance to the music, as well as try and grab the 3D objects in the air. Tommy was constantly reminded of appropriate behavior during the movie from myself, Miss Britton, and his grandmother. Some of Tommy's behaviors were dismissed because we were on a field trip. He's a typical 9-year-old boy that's excited and has a lot of energy. I also observed Tommy at lunch, and the day that I decided to observe him at lunch also happened to be when we were having a picnic outside. Everybody was asked to sit quietly in the picnic area. They were allowed to talk but not get loud, not scream. They were asked not to sit still and not to run around because trays could get broken, milks could be spilled, and we wanted to give everybody equal opportunity to eat their lunch. Tommy did not make smart choices while waiting in line to get his lunch, and he decided to call another student a dummy, so he did start off the lunchtime kind of on a rough start. Tommy was screaming at other students, constantly getting up to run around in the grass area once he finished eating. When he was eating, he was entertained, he had something to do, he was engaged, but once he was finished, he didn't quite know what to do, and he acted impulsively and decided to run. He did not respond to verbal instructions, and he had to clip down when we got into the classroom. Their behavior chart goes pink, purple, green, yellow, orange, and red, and Tommy had to clip down twice to yellow. Social strengths and challenges. Tommy was not eager to fill out the sociogram that I filled out with him. He was unsure of who to pick for each question I asked. Tommy continually emphasized that he really didn't play with anybody. He would rather be to himself. He didn't want to play with other students. Tommy enjoys playing, drawing on his own. Other students have expressed that they don't necessarily enjoy playing with him because he will make fun of them, he will antagonize and tease them, kind of poke fun at them. He's been notorious for calling other students names, so he doesn't have a lot of social strengths in the sense that he likes to go to himself, and some of the other students have kind of ostracized him for his previous behaviors. I believe Tommy was hesitant to answer the questions because he was afraid that he could be wrong. He was also afraid that he may be forced to play with students that he didn't want to. Effective interventions. One of the lesson plans that I decided to pick was for reading. Tommy came to the carpet for whole group instruction on main idea and supporting details. During small group time, Tommy was pulled to the back table for instruction on skills for identifying main idea and supporting details. I pulled Tommy with a group of mixed ability students. So there was other students back there that were on higher levels of reading as well as some middle on grade level readers. We went over main idea and supporting details, and his group was the first that I picked because I knew that as the lesson progressed, Tommy would not be able to pay attention as much and his attention span would be gone, so I chose to pick his group first. During center time, students worked on completing a graphic organizer on main idea based on a short passage. They also did a close nonfiction reading and answered a few short questions. During these times when he was in centers, I allowed him to buddy read with a partner so that he wouldn't have difficulty answering the comprehension questions. Part of fluency leads to comprehension, and if he can't read the passage fluently, then he wouldn't be able to answer those comprehension questions. During whole group time, he fidgeted and became restless as well as lost his attention easily. I found that working with him in a small group setting was better because I could easily redirect him and I could keep his attention more rather than trying to keep him from fidgeting on the carpet with 25 other students. One of the other lessons that I did is the STEM lesson, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. For the STEM lesson, we were talking about the human body and we were studying the heart. So we watched a short video on the human body and the heart. Afterwards, students found their pulse and they did a short activity with a marshmallow and a toothpick, and they watched the marshmallow and toothpick move as their blood was pumped through their veins. Tommy was able to do all this without any extra interventions or accommodations. Afterwards, we went outside to do various exercises to raise our heart rate, and we were talking about the difference between our working heart rate and resting heart rate. Tommy was able to do all of these exercises, including hula hooping, jumping, running, stretching, and walking, and he was able to do those without any accommodations. After completing the lab, students subtracted their resting heart rate and their working heart rate to compare how various exercises raise their heart rate. Tommy does excel in math, as I had mentioned before, so he did well with subtracting, but he needed constant redirection. So once again, I pulled him to the back table so that he could focus better and he was away from other distractions at his desk, with his other books, with his drawing materials. Reflection on interventions. Tommy responded best to small group instruction / intervention, as I mentioned before. Tommy focused the best during small group time as I was there to redirect and guide him as necessary. Tommy also responded the greatest and completed assignments with a higher % accuracy when completing them in small group or one-on-one direction or instruction. So if I was one-on-one with him, working at his desk with him, or even at the back table, he did the best. When Tommy was not at the back table, he would become more distracted, not redirect himself. He doesn't have those self-control, those self-monitoring skills yet, but that's something that his teacher would like to put in place as he becomes older and matures. Special intervention, positive behavior support. Tommy's very active and he acts impulsively. Together with his teacher, Miss Britton, we worked to put a positive behavior support system in place. We put a system in place where Tommy was allowed to get a treat out of the treat box if he remained on green, purple, or pink for the school day. This is a positive reinforcement portion of a positive behavior plan. So instead of necessarily focusing on the negative, we would ask Tommy at the end of the day what place he was on the behavior chart if he had to clip down. If he remained on the top 3, which is pink, purple, and green, he would be allowed to get a treat out of the treat box. And this is something that worked well for Tommy for the majority of time, but he began to lose interest after the weeks went on. It's something that he said that he didn't care whether he got his piece of candy or treat from the treasure box, that his choices, he said, were well worth it. If I were to do this again, I would focus on offering choices to Tommy. Teaching him to make good choices would be good as Tommy matures. And once again, this could go into self-monitoring. I think that Tommy's beginning to get at an age that he can self-monitor and decide whether or not he's on task. The most important thing I learned, Tommy taught me a lot about working with students with ADHD as well as meeting the needs of a student with a double exceptionality. So Tommy excels in math, but he has an SLD in reading, and that's where he really needed more instruction. The hardest part was that in the afternoons he becomes more fidgety, he loses his attention because his medicine is worn off, but that's also the time when reading is. So it took me a little bit more time to redirect him, to keep him on task, and I realized that keeping him on task in the beginning was a lot easier, and it was important because if he lost attention at the very beginning of the task or the activity, then he was was pretty much gone. It was harder to bring him back into the activity than to keep him on task. Small group setting not only provides for a more personalized approach to instruction, but students have difficulty staying on task, the teacher can redirect and keep them on task. So I realized the importance of small group instruction and how much it can benefit certain students, especially those that do lose attention quickly. And that's my case study presentation.